So welcome back to another video, and today we've got a guest. Justin has come all the way from Australia. You work for REA. So if you don't know, Heatable now installs solar in the UK, but we do it a little bit differently. We have an exclusive partnership with a manufacturer called REA, and we install their solar panels. We combine them with Enphase microinverters, and we have the distribution rights for Europe. We're starting in the UK, and we're going to take that further afield when we get an opportunity. We work closely with REA, but we haven't really met that many times in person, obviously because you're a long way away. So we do lots of Teams calls and lots of video calls. Michael's been over a few times. Michael's the owner, proprietor of REA. But you've travelled over, you're here on a holiday at the moment, aren't you? And you're here for a little bit of business as well. So we're going to do a quick video today, just find a bit more about what Justin does for the business. We're going to talk a little bit about REA, some of their future products that are coming down the line, sort of who they are and what they bring to the market, what's different about REA. And then we'll also talk about how the panels work. So the technology is a little bit different. Now, if you're considering solar, you're in the market and you want to buy a solar system, then watching this video is going to be definitely worth your while, because you're going to learn a lot about how this technology could bring some extra efficiency to your property. So let's crack on. We've got some questions here that we've just sort of tabled from the marketing team. Some of the, I suppose, questions that customers ask us about: who is this brand? How can it benefit in my home? So I think we'll kick off there really. So who are REA? Like what does REA do?
Yeah, REA is Renewable Engineering Australia. So we're not only a solar reseller in Australia, but we're also a manufacturer, and we have our own engineering team and install staff on hand as well. So yeah, we handle both sides of the market.
It's a little bit different, isn't it? Because usually in the market you either have solar installers or you have manufacturers. You guys are a bit of a hybrid, which was sort of the interest for us originally, because you had the knowledge and the skill set of installing solar systems, but you had this sort of backstory about you're also a manufacturer, which obviously piqued our interest, and that's how the whole thing sort of kicked off. And when did you join that business then?
Yeah, look, I've been part of REA for just over 12 months, but I've known the director Michael for several years. Yeah. Dealing with him, so yeah, selling him products throughout the years. Right,
okay, you guys have worked together before, and then you sort of joined REA now, and you're picking up, and you're a business development manager there for that
Correct.
Brand.
Yeah, so look, we really were similar like to you in the earlier days, where we were buying, and every other solar company really, and this is our point of difference, is that we're not just buying products, you know, from a wholesaler and selling the same products and competing with, you know, everyone's selling the same thing. So yeah, that led us to, you know, developing our own panel technology, and then with the event of the microinverter technology with Enphase. Yeah. So we
paired them two together.
Yeah. So we've been able to really manufacture, put together our own engineering team now, and we really do have one of the most advanced panels in the world. We can really say that, which is very exciting. And because of that, we can keep ahead of the market, and we're always ahead in terms of technology
and development. Yeah, I mean, every time you speak to Michael at REA, he's got the R&D team are working on something, whether it's a panel, whether it's something to do with the software. There's new cell technology. It seems like a business that's very at the forefront of sort of staying ahead. And before we came on camera, we were having a quick chat, and you mentioned that they're a big player in the market, but you're still agile enough to respond to the market changing, because it's rapidly changing, isn't it?
So quick.
The pace of change from the adoption here in the UK, it's gone, you know, it really has gone wild. But also when you look at solar technology, we view solar technology in 3 generations. So you had generation 1 technology was the old string inverters with sort of 250 watt panels, and they had all the phase matching, and there was something in the UK around sort of 10-15 years ago called the FIT, the feed-in tariff. There was a rush to market, and that was the product of choice. Gen 2 was then batteries became very popular, certainly here in the UK and worldwide. And then there was a requirement for an inverter that would look after the PV, but also look after the battery, and that's a hybrid system. And then now what we view as Gen 3 would be a system that has a very high efficiency panel, such as your panel that we buy, but paired with microinverters. And that's, you know, even since we've had those conversations and adopted this technology, what's great about the partnership with REA is it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, and really what we've done is just take the guesswork out for our clients so that they don't have to try and research and find what's the best panel, what's the best inverter. We've done all that because, look, we've been in business since 2010 in Australia, which is a long time in solar land, as we call it, because it is a difficult industry, and as you said, everything changes and moves so quick. So yeah, we've really put together a bespoke solution for our clients and partners now that offers, you know, way more advantages and just better return and more efficiency and all the advantages of using the microinverter technology with the REA Fusion panel.
The Fusion panel, definitely. And in terms of that panel, we do, you know, some marketing around it, and we explain to clients the differences between a traditional panel and a Fusion panel. Can you just cover off some of the sort of standout differences? Obviously it's bifacial, it's got this N-type cell technology, but how would you best summarize why that panel is such a standout product in market?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, the key point is the production, the output we can get with the microinverter technology. So it's a combination of, you know, using the benefit of the N-phase, say the AC technology, and then enhancing that with our panel. And basically, you know, for the end user, for the customer, it's at least 20% more production, you know, from the panel. So what it means is that you don't need as many panels on your roof, or you can get a bigger system on your roof without having less performing panels on your roof.
Yes.
And that's the major difference, because it's not working on a string system with a typical DC.
Yes.
Yeah, these operate AC because you have a microinverter attached to each panel now, up at the roof level. Yeah, they operate independently, it's safer. You get individual panel monitoring now on the app, which is fantastic from Enphase.
Yes.
Yeah, so, and then with the cell technology, what we've done with the new Fusion panel is, because it's dual glass, so dual cells and glass on top and underneath.
Yeah.
And it's transparent in between the cells, so it lets light through, but it works in any condition, cloud, you know.
The low light performance, isn't it?
It is.
And it has the N-type cell technology, which in basically the efficiency window of that panel can operate over a wider bandwidth. So if there's low light, because you've got the microinverter, it can activate and it can produce, but it can also produce at the upper end of the panel as well. So I think when Michael started talking to us about the technology, we were looking for a solution which said, like, how can we give the clients access to the best panel on the market? Can we give them fully optimized system? Because in the UK, we get quite a bit of shading just with the construction type of properties, but we also get shading from cloud cover. And we tested lots of systems and found what you said earlier on, which is most of the market is made up of 10 to 15 panel manufacturers, 5 or 10 inverter manufacturers, and everyone quotes the same sort of stuff. And we weren't that impressed with it. It was just from the testing we did. And we actually delayed our solar project by 6 months because we got in touch with Michael. He started talking to us. We wanted to test some of the equipment because the combination of the microinverter and the panel, Michael was telling us, look, there's about 20% here. We didn't, you know, at the end of the day, we wanted to test it independently before we committed, which is why it took so long. And we had some systems on test, and it's about 18 to 20%. And the mileage comes from, there's earlier startup, there's later shutdown, and when it's not full sun, I mean, ironically today it's actually pretty sunny. But when it's not full sun, we can capture. Whereas the DC system that we've got on test against it, that intermittently will shut down or turn off when these will stay on.
Correct.
And what is interesting, when I ask you the question then around what's the difference about the panel, you do exactly what Michael does, which is you don't talk about the panel, you talk about the module, as in the inverter and the panel as sort of one unified solution. So when I'll say to Michael, we want some more marketing material for the panel, he says, look, the panel has been built around the inverter solution. Like, don't get hung up on the specifics of the panel. The panel is the best panel on the market as far as he's concerned, in terms of this bifacial technology, the clear intersection, the N-type, the low light activation. But he views it as one ecosystem. And I think that's something that clients in the UK, certainly even me who's in market, I'm still getting used to that notion, because we typically buy panels and people will buy a generic brand inverter and pair the two. And there's not a huge amount of synergy or relationship between what that panel is and what that inverter is. People just chop and change. So it is definitely, it's interesting. Just a quick question that comes up, to us as a challenge from clients would be, the panel is bifacial, but if it's against my black tiled roof or my red tiled roof, am I ever going to benefit from that? What would REA's answer be to a client who sort of tables that? Yes, definitely. Because of the technology and that's the whole reason of doing the dual bifacial, is that the sun or the UVs do reflect, that's lost. So what we've done is, instead of light just hitting the panel and that's it, by having it transparent in between each of the cells, it lets light through to hit the roof, and then the back section of the panel then captures that reflection. Right. So, and look, depending on the day, and it will vary, but there is a percentage there, and that's how we get more production out of our panels than any other manufacturer, because of that factor. We're using both sides of the panel, not just the front. Yeah, and it's the only bifacial panel I've ever seen that has the clear intersection and that cell type combination. So that's where that efficiency comes from. And I think the misconception, talking to Michael and doing some research ourselves, is that it's not always about direct sunlight, is it? It's not. UVs in the atmosphere. It is, yeah. And the other key point too is because to get more output of panels, the manufacturers are now going for larger panels. So it's actually taking up more roof space. Yeah. We've actually gone smaller. Our panel is back to a normal size. Yeah. So we can get more production from a smaller panel. So we can, per square meter, get more, panels on your roof. So we're not taking up all that roof space. So, for expansion opportunities and more panels on the roof. Yeah, and that's another key feature of the system, isn't it? You touched on it earlier, which is typically for a 14 panel system, you need 12 for this, because you get that extra 20% performance. So not only does it require less initial outlay for the client, but you get the same amount of production. Or if you've got the real estate, the space to have 14, you can outperform like for like another system by another 20%, because you take advantage of the fact you've got 2 extra panels. Yeah, it will. So the comparison is, the way I explain it to my customers, with the DC system you'll get more panels, taking up more roof space, but producing less per panel. With the REA system, you'll have less panels, producing more from each panel, taking up less roof space. So allowing you to actually grow and have a bigger system. And that's the other benefit of the micro and the panel solution being modular, is that you're not stuck to buying a set system size like a DC, like a whatever size system you're looking at. You can just grow this as you need it. So you don't have to go and fill your roof straight away with panels. And you can grow and transition, do your solar first and then move into batteries as the next stage, and you can stage it. And it becomes modular, doesn't it? Correct. Whereas with a DC system, once it's on, it's on. You've sized it, you've done, you cannot expand that system anymore. Whereas these are modular, so if you ever have an increased electricity demand in the property, so you get a heat pump or you get an EV, and you've got additional roof space, you can tackle that at a later date. Correct. And for more complex roofs, one of the massive advantages for us is we work on a national basis, and not every roof type is the same. So we can have some panels over here, some panels over there. Whereas on a DC system, You
Correct.
need voltage, you need enough voltage to make that panel array worthwhile, otherwise it doesn't switch on. And just to cover that off really quickly, can you just explain the main differences between having what we or REA classify as an ACM, you know, an AC module with a microinverter,
Yep.
compared to having panels and two cables coming down into inverter? Like, what's the differences in the system, and what are the performance
Yep.
advantages?
Yeah, no, great question. Look, the key points are, one is that it's modular, so you don't have one inverter now. So a DC, typical standard DC system will have one inverter on the wall,
Yeah.
or where it's connected to. And then the panels are actually then connected in what's called a series, a string. So they're actually linked and they operate together. And that's one of the major disadvantages now in that technology, is that, like you mentioned earlier, if clouds come over, the whole lot of the panels will then drop in production, or if one side gets shading from a tree, or one panel gets dirty, it drops the production down for that whole string.
Right.
So over a lifetime, that's a huge amount of production that you've lost from your system. And this is where the AC, going for the a single inverter, a micro inverter technology, being modular, is that they operate independently. So if one at one end of the roof gets shading, it's not going to affect the other one down the other end of the roof, because they operate independently and they're powered independently.
Right, okay.
So the other key point is that you're, like we just mentioned before, future-proofing for the client, so they don't have to reinvest. Because look, DC systems do have a lifespan, a limitation of them, because you're stuck with that size inverter for a start. So if they get the EV or want to add more batteries and and cut down their power, and depending with DC, they've got to buy a set size for that, so taking up more roof space.
Yeah.
But down the track, adding panels back into that system is because of the voltage differences there. It's not easy, so you're stuck with that size. So when it comes to requiring a bigger system, you either have to look at upgrading it or replacing it, and that's reinvesting again. Whereas going with the AC modular, because they're modular, you can just add on as you need, as we said before.
Right, okay.
And look, the other big thing too is the safety side with DC over AC, because AC is connected directly into your switchboard now and it's circuit protected, whereas DC, being on a string system, it's high voltage. So you do have high voltage points and cabling running all through your roof, ceiling, down to the inverter. And
the risk there is that if the cable ever fails or it arcs, that's where all these solar PV fires come from, which
Correct.
is emerging in the UK now, I think, because systems are getting a bit older, or there's lots of new entrants to market who maybe aren't totally fully understanding the systems and qualified to install them, that when you have 10, 14, 15 panels together on one string, there could be 400-600 volts.
Correct.
And with this system, everything immediately is converted from the panel to AC, and therefore is circuit protected. So if a cable did rub, arc, got damaged, water ingress, it would just shut down and trip.
It would, yeah, absolutely. And then the panel itself, this is the other key point too, because you're using one inverter with, say, 14 panels. If that inverter fails, generally, if something's going to go wrong with the solar, it is generally the inverter. Your whole system's out of action until it's fixed. So that could be days, weeks, until it's fixed. Whereas with the micro inverter, because you have the micro underneath each panel, one on the roof level, if one fails, the rest will continue to operate because they operate independently.
Right.
So there's no downtime. It limits your downtime, and also too, there's really no upkeep to having AC, like the modular system, because there's no high voltage really. With high voltage to keep it safe, and look, the legislation and laws are changing around the world now with DC. America has changed. Australia is about to incorporate, because unfortunately, because of the high voltages and all the different points you have with isolators and cabling and inverters, you really need to have that tested regularly to make sure it's safe. Yeah, because as you said, if a rodent chews through a cable or it gets damaged, it can cause DC arcing, which can cause fire. So the system, the microinverter technology has rapid shutdown as well, so it shuts down as well, whereas DC doesn't have rapid shutdown. It's not by law.
Yeah.
So,
and your panels only they're operating at around 40 volts, I think, aren't they, as well? So each one is 40 volts, and therefore there is no high voltage DC risk.
correct.
And I think on that maintenance perspective as well, there's something that clients, I think, in the UK are slowly getting educated and starting to understand more as they research into more products, which is people quote lifetime savings when they're selling someone a solar system. What they don't quote is lifetime maintenance costs. So what is the warranty on an REA panel or an ACM, so the inverter and the panel? What warranty would a client get, and what would they get with a string system?
Well, look, typically the N-phase, which is the microinverter technology, they come standard. In Australia, it's a 15-year warranty.
Yeah.
But they'll back that technology up to 25-year warranty.
Yeah, we get 25.
Yeah. So we're looking at incorporating the 25-year, and then look, our panel, the REA panel, has 25-year warranty as well.
And there's no, because it's not high voltage, there's no annual maintenance inspections and joint inspections. They're not got to get on the roof every year. It's essentially, it's once that's installed, that client's protected for the panel and the inverter for a 25-year period for product failure. So it's a really, really interesting perspective for a client when they're costing up systems, is what is the lifetime maintenance? Because it's a real issue in the UK with, you're going to save X amount over all these years, but what's it going to cost to maintain that system?
Well, that's it, and that's where these back-end costs come into play, because people, the perception with the, the consumer and the marketing, which is, all these cheaper, all this marketing and pricing of systems is, some are cheaper, but this is where it gets you in the back end is, that you're not going to get the same production over the lifetime, so your production is way lower. And then, the upkeep side of it, and then outgrowing the system. So clients are having to reinvest, because that's where in Australia at the moment, because we're obviously a very, highly populated solar community market, we're really up to people now on their second systems, because they bought the first gen solutions back in the day, 10 years ago. And they're now at that point of, having to reinvest again, with the DC technology. So,
whereas with this system, they could modular expand. So that's the current profile for the market. That's the current product line. Michael's, constantly, we're working with him really closely, because we've bought this and we've invested so much money in this UK and European distribution partnership to sort of get these products into market. Something that we stay quite close to is what else is coming down the line. I'm just wondering, are you able to give us, or certainly the viewers of this video, any insight to how your system might change from the two components?
Yeah, look, as I said before, we're always innovating and working on, future technology to source the best quality material and cells for our panels, so that we can stay ahead of the market, and we will continue to do that. Look, we're always going to be pushing
new products.
And pushing the boundary and bringing out to market first, this technology for us. But look, the other key in the big growth area now, especially in Australia and over here, is really battery technology is going to be the next, because that's really how the customer can, wipe out a lot of their bill now.
Self-consumption, isn't it? So this is a big thing around, we get quite a few clients who've been conditioned in market from surveyors or salespeople, whatever you want to call them, in-home sitting, and they'll say, I want to sell to one of the energy suppliers, we've already got a Bentley brochure because we're going to be buying our new car on the back of this. And our mantra and our philosophy on that is, if you end up with a system that's exporting loads of energy, we've got it wrong. Because it should be about self-consumption on site. Export, for us, our philosophy is that's one above purchasing energy from the grid. If you've satisfied your battery, you've satisfied your EV, your whatever, your heating solution in home, and you've got some redundant energy, then export it. But you know, if you put the economics of putting a system on the roof to export to the grid just don't stack up. And battery technology is rapidly increasing, isn't it? Because there's lots of very cheap batteries on the market. The old stackable ones, like the cassette style. And then now people have moved to sort of these separate batteries, but they're still high voltage, aren't they? So you have the orange high voltage cabling. We have to fit, to be compliant with this system, we fit AC batteries. And that market there's some big players in there, isn't there? You've got Tesla, there's Alpha ESS.
And now Enphase.
So Enphase are bringing their battery solution to the UK. We're actually on the beta trial for that. So the volume that we do, and we work closely with Enphase. Some partners in the UK have been chosen to trial those. So we've got the first client's like, I'm having 20 kilowatt hours, so he's gone big on it. But that battery is now under their ecosystem, isn't it?
Correct.
And they told us that there's two things coming down the line. One of them is they've got a bi-directional car charger, which our system is compatible with. So if you had a system installed now, you could later adopt this technology, which is you could plug your EV in and that would supplement your house power. And also they've got a power management unit, which there's a big issue in the solar market with like EV car chargers and heat pumps. And all the products, air conditioning, which they pull what they need regardless. Enphase's energy monitor is going to proportion available energy to them. And there'll be a decision to made by that piece of equipment to say, yeah, I'm prepared to accept a slightly lower output for the efficiency, or no, my client wants to drive wherever tomorrow, I'm taking 7-10 kilowatt or whatever.
That's absolutely what's coming, and that's the importance of why we've selected the right brands and what we've partnered, and really why you've come on board with us, because look, we're about creating an all-in-one solution for the customer experience. One app, like with Enphase, for example, you will have that one app sort of solution eventually with your battery, your solar, car charging. So
it's a whole ethos, isn't it, what Michael really drives, and what we've adopted, which is why do people offer 10 different panels at 415 watt? Like they've got no support. Like one of the things we like with REA is we have that support. You've got a support team, you've got the engineering team, we've got resource to access. Whereas if we were listing 4 different 420 watt panels, it would be like our support, our warranty claims, or whatever we've got to deal with, it's impossible, isn't it?
It is. And look, this is the other big thing with Enphase and how advanced they are and why they are the world leader in this microinverter technology, is that you get over-the-air free software updates to each of the microinverters and batteries. It's done automatically. You don't have to manually do it. Most of the DC systems on the market will connect to your Wi-Fi, but most of them aren't automatically upgraded. So they're really, the DC is really a set and forget type technology, and the way
it's cheap to access for a client, isn't it?
It is. Look, the best analogy I put to my customers is DC is an analog technology, and microinverter AC module technology is digital. We're in the digital era now because of the app too that you get. Because you can see your panels, can't you? So on this software that you guys have, that you can access each individual panel, you can report on each individual panel, and you can see consumption, export, whereas you do not get that with a standard DC system. No, because a standard DC will only give you the output of the whole system. It won't tell you what each panel's doing. So panel number 7 on, say, a string of 8 panels, you've got no idea what it's doing.
And if you have a fault with DC, you've got to take every panel off and test it until you find the one that has the fault. My understanding with this system is that one will shut down or report an issue, and they're addressable on the roof. So if we had a warranty or a maintenance claim, we'd say, right, it's that one up there, cool. So the costs of repairing the system are minute.
Exactly, and this is where the upkeep costs come in, because how would you know with the DC string system which panel's faulty?
So unfortunately, we lost the last 10 minutes of the audio on that video because one of the microphones died. We've tried to recover it, we've tried to make it work, and we just couldn't get it to fit with that video. But what we got from Justin was a really in-depth insight to why REA are the world leaders when it comes to solar panel technology. Now we have got Justin and Michael, the founder of REA, traveling over from Australia in January. We've gone back to them on this video and we've agreed to reshoot it, but we're going to have Michael there, and Michael is the guru of anything to do with solar. So what I would suggest, if you've got any questions that you want to ask about these panels, you want to ask about REA, N-type, TopCon technology, leave a comment below. We will put them to Michael and Justin when they come back, and we'll make sure they get included on the next video.